morning, Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody. We're so glad you're with us.
We can't wait to get into this one because it's a weekend review.
Yes. So Cece is going to say good morning and have a great weekend and sit on the table. But Cece's our mascot. So hello to all of you out there watching and listening.
Cece is the Wooka raccoon to welcome, understand, comfort, and appreciate yourself and others and create the environment to where people can become what they want to become and feel like they belong. It's the basis in the philosophy of Rural Community Solutions on how we build environments that help communities design family-friendly, youth-centered places to where people want to live. Home-based businesses want to emerge and move into yours. Teleworkers want to live in your community because of the support systems that they have. Entrepreneurs want to start businesses in your community because of the support system that they have and how your community's environment helps them get to where they want to go. That's Rural Community Solutions. That's what we do. That's how we help communities. But also it works for businesses and it works for organizations. And as another add-on, it also works for churches.
And families.
And
marriages.
And
everything.
And everything.
Just easier to go to everything.
It does. It's all about building great relationships.
The principles apply to every relationship, yes.
And that's what this week was about. It was introducing you to the pillars of Rural Community Solutions, of our Rural Community Prosperity pillars of relationships, engagement, entrepreneurs, and collaboration. And we're taking a week in September. What's this? August.
This is still August.
This is still August.
We're taking a week at a time.
We're taking 1 week in August for each of these pillars.
For 3 of them. And then in September.
It is Entrepreneurship Month for Rural Community Solutions. As we talk about the importance of the pillar in entrepreneurship, because it also helps the economy within your community, and it helps your community grow with entrepreneurial thinking. So stay tuned. We'll finish up with the month of August here with relationships, engagement, and collaboration, and then we'll move on into entrepreneurship. And you won't want to miss that because we've got a great speaker lined up for you. Don Mackey will be in the house. Yay! Woo! Woo! Don Mackey from Entrepreneurial Ecosystems, a highly respected rural economic developer and rural policy expert, sought after, is part of our team. And he is going to help us launch Entrepreneurship Month with Rural Community Solutions. So stay tuned, subscribe to your Rural Community Solutions TV live stream on YouTube so you don't miss an episode and you catch every one of our episodes because you want to. You'll want to know how we are. And by the way,
guess we should say who we are.
I'm Frank Spillers.
And I'm Kim Spillers, yes.
And together we are Rural Community Solutions.
Yes, indeed. That is who we are. So we're going to finish up today with a wrap up of Relationship Week. As Frank said, if you didn't catch Clark Gerlach yesterday, his interview about his experiences that we've had here in Cass County with several of our processes and how great relationships can be formed when we work together, when we collaborate, when we use all of these pillars. Go back and catch yesterday's episode. And if you want to know about relationships all week long and all the tips and techniques and tools that we have provided, you can go back and you can catch them on our YouTube.
And if you want to see a weekend review from our newsletter, just email me. Let me get this up. Frank@ghorizons.com or Kim@ghorizons.com. Email us that you would like to be put onto our newsletter. And we'll do a weekend review. You'll get all the episodes in one spot, and you can look at them. You can get the weekend review and then go back and review any episode that you want. Or go to Rural Community Solutions TV YouTube channel and you can get those episodes as well. It's up to you if you want to go for convenience or if you just want to
go find it on your own.
Work at it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's get going here.
Away.
Let's get going. And for the week in review on Monday we had in our relationships triangle, we had.
Whoops, it switched. Name that movie.
Tradition keeps us in frozen areas. Tradition keeps us in our comfort zone. History keeps us in our comfort zone. Beliefs and trust keeps us in our comfort zone. When we are in our comfort zones, then we don't want to change. And we always say here at Rural Community Solutions, people love change. They just don't like transition. And so when you're reviewing something that you look at, okay, something that you look at as an ice cube. And if you go back to Monday, we had that ice cube and we talked about leadership and we talked about hammers and how change is either crisis mode, just like what we're in right now with the COVID, is that change is scattered. Everybody is fearful of the change. We don't know what to do because change has scattered, just like an ice cube and a hammer hitting an ice cube. Change goes all over the place. All right, the ice cube is scattered. Now, so what you really want to do is let the environment change the ice cube. So you take the ice cube tray, you take the ice cube out of the ice cube tray, you put it on the table, and then you let the environment change it because that is the period of transition. When you look at here, let me show you again. When you look at here of the period of transition, this is it. This is the unfreezing of the ice cube to a puddle of water is the transition stage from comfort zone to what needs to happen. That's transition. And people, the uncomfortability of transition, need to step forward and step towards the uncomfortability. When you step into the uncomfortability and work with the transition on small steps, then it becomes a process of change, not a crisis of change. And once you can do that and the change happens, you can reform the change, put structure around it, and you have a new way of doing things. Once you have that new way of doing things, though, unfreeze the ice cube again, transition, keep up with the times, keep up with where the trends are, watch the trends, watch the economy, watch your demographics, and move with those, because if you get into the cycle and the habit of change, of unfreezing to freezing, you get into the habit of transforming, and it's easier each time that you move along. So that is the cycle of change. That's change versus transition, and that's where people need to be.
So I am going to have to excuse myself right now because I actually am on another live chat. And so I'll be moving on to Inspiring Healthy Living in the Midwest, which is a tandem focus for us for healthy communities, kind of literally, physically, spiritually, mentally. And so I will wish you a great weekend. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you next week. And Frank will tell you what the week's focus is and tell you a little bit more about it in a while. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
So speaking of transition and change, there she goes that way. All right. we'll just keep going. And go from Monday and into Tuesday. We talked about attitude and we talked about results. How does your attitude then affect the results that you get? If you have a bad attitude, you're going to get bad results. Attitude reflects your actions, and your actions reflect your attitude. And so as we look at attitude and as a driver, attitude drives your actions. In other words, if you wake up in the morning, you say, I'm going to have a great attitude, and you move that, and then you get great results for the day because that's been your attitude. You get what you expect. You get your expectations are what you look for. And so attitude is a big driver of your action, and your actions then drive the results that you get, because the results drive what you get in all different aspects. Those results drive your get. And so we always say that you have a responsibility to act and have a responsibility for your attitude. Responsibility is defined like this: you have the ability to respond in any way. In other words, you have your circumstances. You have your circumstances. And we're going to go through this formula once more. If you didn't see it, here's the formula: C plus A equals R, because the C is your circumstances. That's where you're at. That's not where you end up. It's just where you're at. And so as you look at your circumstances, your attitude determines your circumstances. Your attitude has driven your results to get the circumstances that you want. You have to look at where you are right now and then move forward. And if you had a bad attitude and you're in bad circumstances, change your attitude now. Change your attitude as part of your actions, because that will then improve the results that you get. And we work with communities on this, as to watch the words that you use in the coffee shop, watch how your front line people talk about your community, watch how you talk to newcomers in your community to help them feel like they belong, because your circumstances then have created the actions that you're getting, and that's created the results. So look at that formula. Your circumstances plus your actions give you the results that you need. So circumstances plus actions are results. Start with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say. Start with the end in mind. In other words, call it a vision. We're going to be talking about vision in a couple of weeks, of really digging deep down into that. We're going to dissect this formula and get down into the vision of the results and the actions as part of goals. So your circumstances plus your actions give you those results, but it's all driven by your attitude. It's all driven by your attitude of how you view the world. You either wake up in the morning and you have two choices. Am I going to be happy, or am I not going to be happy? Those are your two choices. So choose happiness, act happy, and the results that you get will be happy. Choose not being happy. Don't be happy as you act during the day, and the results that you will get is just like you're a crap magnet, because you will attract crap. And so as we move through the car and we move through building more relationships, we need to look at what are relationships, and that is valuing others. As you're building those relationships, do you ask yourself, do I value who is in front of me? Do I value the relationship? Do I value the person enough to build a relationship? And valuing others, figure out and to talk about and to listen for what are their interests. We're going to be digging deep into this next week. This is kind of an introduction into engagement, which is our topic for the week next week. How do you build civility in your community? By valuing others, by listening to them, understanding where they're coming from, understanding what they do. That is part of valuing a community. That is part of valuing others. How can I be more generous towards them? In other words, regardless of whether they deserve it or not, in my perception, in my opinion, that doesn't matter. Everybody deserves something. They deserve to be valued. Everybody deserves to be valued no matter what. Let me just put that out there. Everybody deserves to be valued no matter what. They are valued as an individual. They are valued as a person. Some of their actions might not be very smart. Some of their actions might not agree with you, but the person, we have to uphold the people as and value them of what they are because of who they are. And valuing others is just that step in creating civility and creating great relationships. So we want to move towards those circumstances, create those great relationships to really get the results that you want. Okay, so that is the week. That's and as Kim had mentioned yesterday, we did an interview with Clark Gerlach, who is a community leader down in a town of Cumberland, a town of a little over 200 people. Okay, Clark was born and raised there, but Clark talked about building relationships through what he had learned through processes that we have done with that community, to where he created a relationship with a gentleman from Western Massachusetts that moved his entire family to Cumberland because of the relationship that they started online and because of the broadband capabilities that we have in our part of the country, in our part of the Midwest, in the rural Midwest here. Great relationships, great broadband. He could work from home. He had access to an airport, and that's what he did. He traveled around the world. He worked from home for a internet-based. He was a coder for an internet-based company, and they had employees all over the world. But he chose to live in the rural area. He chose because of the relationship that he had built with the community leader, because he wanted the hobby farm. And so, yeah, there's a spot. There's that spot. What he wanted to do as a hobby. He could bring his job. He could bring his work with him wherever he wanted to live. And that's what we're working with communities, is to get them ready to attract people, because people will bring their jobs with them. People will bring their employment. People will bring their businesses with them. They're choosing where to live these days. And that is a shift. That is a transformation, the change that we need to look at in how we build our communities. It's no longer good to just recruit companies to your rural community, because competition is so high. Companies play the game. Companies expect a lot of monetary value for locating in your community. There's a lot of trade-offs, and sometimes it doesn't benefit the community for the return on investment that you're making to get that company there, for the number of jobs and the payroll and the salaries of those people. So you have a return on investment that you have to weigh, all right? And that's what you have to do. But for more rural communities out there, for the small ones, for the, say, under 20,000 that we like to target, for under those 20,000, recruiting people and attracting people that want to live in your community is a great strategic advantage these days, because people are looking where they want to live, who they want relationships with, where they want to raise their family, and where they want to work. That is a huge shift of circumstances, and that is a transformation that we have to make from your tradition, your history, your culture of your community and how it's grown into what is happening now and how are you going to grow in the future. So that's all about relationships. Now I want to introduce a topic, and you will probably know this from if you have read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, the book. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. But in Simon Sinek's book, he draws this diagram, because people don't buy what you do, but they buy why you do it. Right? And so your community really needs to figure out its why. Why are you a community? Why do you exist? Who are you there for? And why? What's the emotion that you're going to use to attract people? Because when you are selling, which what you're doing is creating your community, you're creating your product to sell to other people that want to be attracted into living in your community. So when you are, say, creating that why, you are looking for people okay? Because you were looking for people that can relate to that why, that are drawn to that why. People don't buy by rational reasons. They don't buy by rational thinking. Okay, this is why you can sell a car with no words. You can sell a car just by having Matthew McConaughey. Hello, Matthew. Matthew McConaughey standing on the side of a pool with his arms open, and he falls into a swimming pool, and he sells cars. People buy cars because of the emotion that is evoked around the exquisiteness of the car that is being sold, and the emotion of the celebrity that is selling it, that is connected to that. This is why companies get celebrities to endorse their product, is the emotion that they like that celebrity, and if that celebrity is connected with that product, that invokes the emotion within that person, and people buy emotion. The emotion of that why, it hits the limbic side of the brain. It hits the limbic brain, the feelings of trust and loyalty, and the responsible for all. And it's just the responsibility of the responsible of all human behavior is that limbic brain. That's why people do what they do. And so, as your community, you need to know what your why is, and why in relationships are so important to me. This is the basis of why we do what we do, and building great relationships is the foundation of everything that we do. It's just communities we work with, but relationships with people, relationships amongst and between people is so foundational to us and to me as we grow our business. It is our business, and it is our life. It is our family. This is how we are. And this is the reason why, is that in April of 2011, I got this call from my daughter. And let me go back a little bit in history. I was a single dad. And some of you may have heard this, some of you may have not, but it's a story worth repeating. It's a story I tell all the time on stage. It's a story that we tell in all of our workshops. It's important to tell because it makes people, or it helps people understand why we do what we do. And so as I grew up without a father in a single home, I was one of 4 kids. My mom was an entrepreneur. Maybe that's why I'm an entrepreneur, right? It's the environment's more important than heredity. It's the environment that I grew up in. And I'm not blaming the environment. So you can't rest on your laurels to blame the environment, because you can change the environment and you can change your circumstances by your actions. It's just a choice. And so as I grew up, and I grew up in a very strict household, and my mother would always look at me and say, "I don't care if you love me or not, but by God, you will respect me." And that was kind of the tone of it was a loving home, but that was the tone of how we grew up. And so that's the tone I took on as a father, because I didn't know how to father. I knew how a mother would father, but I didn't know how to parent as a father. And so it was just kind of like, do what I know. And so my 2 kids grew up under that household. And there was a time that I was a single dad raising 2 kids going to college, and I set that environment within our household. I was very strict, and I, ruled by fear. That's how I grew up. So that's how I was going to parent. And it created a wedge. I mean, we had love in our household. I love my daughters dearly. We had love there, and I think they loved me back. And as they grew up, they also then wanted to find another environment and go live with their mother for a short time. And they came back, and when the youngest one came back, we had been, over the course since she was about 9 years old, we had been treating her for some illness. It was more mental illness than it was anything else. She was in and out of treatment facilities for, 20 years. And it was just excruciating as a parent, because we couldn't figure out what it was. And so she was on very high doses of psychotic medicines because she was seeing things. She was have panic attacks, anxiety. She'd start school. 2 weeks later, she'd have to stop school. She was in and out of the hospital, in and out of treatment facilities. Nobody could identify the cause. Nobody could identify the cause of what her symptoms were. And that's what's frustrating. So that frames more of my why. When you hear me rip back the carpet and find out your cause, this is why. And so in about 2003, I get a phone call from my oldest daughter, who by now is living in another state and married and starting a family of her own. I get a phone call from my oldest daughter and said, Dad, Aaron's going to ask you to come and live with me, and I can't handle her. And so I said, okay, I'll handle it, and I'll keep her here. And so Aaron called me. Aaron's my youngest, and she called me at that point in time and said, Dad, I'm going to go and live with my sister. I said, no, Aaron, you can't. Why don't you just stay here with me? And let's just take a step back. She goes, no, I want to go. I'm gonna go. And I said, no, Aaron, don't go. She can't take care of you out there. She goes, I don't care. I can take care of myself. I'm going out there. I said, no, Aaron. And by this time, my blood pressure is going up, because you have a child that's arguing with you. You have a child that's not listening to her parent. And she's 21 at this point in time and can do whatever she wants. But as a parent, I'm trying to be the go-between between my two kids. And at that time, she goes, no, I don't care what you say. I'm going. And this time I just lost it. I screamed into the phone, no, you're not going. I forbid it. And the next thing I heard was click. The phone hung up. And that's the last I heard from Erin for more than 9 years. She had asked all of the family, all of her relations, everybody in the family, not to tell me where she was, what she was doing, who she was with, how she was doing, or anything, any information like that. And so I didn't know what had happened or what was happening to my youngest daughter for that period of time. That brings us back to April 28th of 2011, April 28th of 2011. My wife and I, Kim, were driving back, and we were coming across the street, almost to our driveway, and I get this phone call. Pick up the phone, and it's my oldest daughter. And I said, well, hi, how are you? And she goes, Dad, I've got something to tell you. I said, well, what's that? And she goes, Dad, Aaron died today. And I said, what? And she goes, Erin died today. She passed away. And I was just floored. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And we hung up, and I then, started taking steps on, we needed to pack, we needed to leave, we needed to go down to where she was, and which was many states away. And so we did that. And when I got down to where Erin had passed away, we were all talking to the funeral director and planning the funeral and planning what was going to be happening next. And because we were not going to have a public viewing, I asked that I would like to have some time with Erin. So Kim and I would like to have some time with Erin. And so the funeral director said, well, she has an autopsy. We haven't prepared the body for a public viewing. Is that how you want to view her? And I said, yes, because she's going to be cremated. And so when the doors opened to the viewing room, Kim and I walked in, and there was Erin in the cardboard coffin. And in that cardboard coffin, she was wrapped in a sheet like this, with just her face showing and a hand sticking out. That's all the skin I could see. Is her face was showing just like this, because They had cut open her head to look at her, to look at her, some of her brain. So this was open, and this was, I could touch. That's the last I saw of my daughter ever. That's the last. And that's the last I saw of her since 2003. And this was 2011. And so there was that time I didn't know where she was, and so what we had found out from there, after I said goodbye, we did that. What we had found out, because I wasn't told what happened, but a year before she had passed away, they diagnosed Erin with Lyme's disease. Lyme's disease. Okay, so that was the cause of what was happening to her. That was the cause of why she was acting the way she was acting. When we don't search for a cause, we just treat the symptoms. It's important to dig down and find the cause of what's going on. And so in your community, you have a cause. In your organization, you have a cause of why you do the things that you do. You have to dig down. And that is my why. My why of building great relationships is this. The bottom line to this: you might not ever have another chance to say words to somebody that you love. So make the words, make the actions, and make the results the ones that you want to leave that person with if you never see them again and never have the chance to talk to them again. That's why we build great relationships in Rural Community Solutions. That's why we do what we do. And it's important to know that, because it's important to know, how will this decision affect kids with everything that you do? Ask yourself this question: how will this decision affect kids? Because when you ask that question, it's generational. When you ask that question as a perfect and planning process in your community, it looks generational. It's not you're planning for you, it's you're planning for your grandchildren, or you're planning for your great-grandchildren, because they're going to be the leaders when the culture changes. Culture is not changing overnight. It's like the ice cube. Culture doesn't change overnight. It transforms over time. So this is not a one and done type of deal. This is, how do we look at it, and how are our habits affecting what we do? Because 96% of what you do is subconscious thought. 96% of the habits that you have are subconscious thought. It's 4% of what we think about is what we do. So if 96% of what we do is subconscious thought, those are our habits. That's our culture. That's under the rug. That's why we do what we do. So it's really important to understand and to find out what works, what doesn't work, and move backwards to that to find. And that's why we say we're going to rip open what's under the rug. We're going to rip that rug back, and we want to look at the cause of what that is. So Rural Community Solutions then really digs deep into the culture and looks at the causes of what your community does. That's really what we do. And that was the week in review. We hope that you have enjoyed the second week. It's only been 2 weeks. But we have given you a lot of content. I hope we've given you a lot of things to think about as you go on. But before this weekend ends up, let me leave you with a thought. Is that you cannot change what you do not confront. So look at your actions, look at the habits, look at your relationships, look at the results and the circumstances that you're in right now and where you've gotten there, and analyze, how do you think you've gotten there? Look at that and then figure out what of the 96%, take a small portion of that, because we're going to do it a step at a time. Take a small portion of that and say, how can I make my relationships better? I'm Frank Spillers. Next week, we're going to be talking about engagement. We're going to be talking about how you build civility in your community, how you build civility within the environment to where people want to get along and you talk through issues, you just don't talk about them. That's engagement. We're going to dig deep into that. We've got a great speaker next week with Bruce Voistel from the National Conference of State Legislators. He's retired from there, but it's how legislators and how elected officials have worked across this country to build civility, and how our processes has helped that process along to build civility. Maybe we need to review that and to get back to those actions. Next week, the pillar of engagement. I'm Frank Spillers, and from Kim and I, from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate you tuning in. Hit the subscribe button, comment below on today's episode. If you want to share it, please share it across your social networks. We'll be happy to, we are so grateful and happy for your support. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.